Today's guest is the fastest growing top real estate agent award winner who is taking an innovative approach to real estate, simplifying the process for buyers and sellers. He's a student of the game, always staying up to date on the latest industry trends, and a family man and a man of faith. Welcome to the podcast, Kevin Silva.
Thank you.
So I guess tell me, how did you get started in real estate? You know, what got you to where you're at today?
So what got me into real estate, I was in the banking industry for a long time. I started back in 2012 as a bank teller, and that introduced me to sales.
Okay.
So I worked at Wells Fargo, where it was very sales oriented. They were very pushy, I don't know if you saw the news.
I was going to say.
Right. So that got me into that sales driven mindset. And I really liked it because, they were adding a lot of pressure. But one thing that I uncovered while I was in the banking industry was that it's all about adding value. So if I needed to sell X amount of checking accounts, X amount of savings accounts, I just added value, and that's how I was able to get my numbers up.
Okay.
So just fast forward that to 2019, 2020, my wife and I, we were thinking about buying a house, and COVID had just started. I was a business banker at that time at Bank of America, and my sister-in-law worked at Century 21 as a TC. So she introduced us to a realtor in this area, who was really awesome. So just going through the process of buying the home, she was very informative, not pressure-based, and buying it throughout the COVID-19, like right at the very beginning, was a very interesting experience.
Yeah.
Because we didn't know where the market was going to head.
Right.
But to get to my point, just going through that process, I fell in love with real estate, and I was like, you know what? I can do this.
Okay.
I don't want to be a slave at an office anymore. I want to be able to, add value by just helping people transition to buying their first homes. Just like the realtor added value in my life, I wanted to do the same thing.
That's interesting. The transition from banker to real estate. Did you ever consider going and doing the mortgage side? Because obviously, did you get a mortgage when you bought the house?
I did.
Okay. You're already in banking. Was there like hey, maybe I would do mortgage, versus real estate, because you're already in the banking world?
Yeah, so it did come across to my mind. I just do remember partnering up with some of the mortgage officers because I would refer them my business clients.
Okay.
While I was in banking. However, mortgage wasn't something that appealed to me at the time.
Gotcha.
Like, it wasn't something that I was passionate about because I see the frustration of what mortgage people have to go through. People shop you around.
Yeah.
You'll spend hours just trying to go out of your way to get them the best rate, only for them to say, like, you know what, I'm going with XYZ.
Yeah.
So I didn't have the passion for that particularly. I was more of I want to see homes, right? They're cool.
Yeah.
So
there's a lot more people, I believe, that make the transition from banker and mortgage into real estate, and you hit the nail on the head. That's, I think, a big part of the reason why. Being able to go out and look at properties and, meet with clients face to face and go out and tour homes it's appealing. I mean,
right.
It seems like a lot of fun. So when you were first starting out, did you take a bunch of clients from the bank and, just start immediately selling homes? Like, what was sort of your journey to, I guess, your first transaction? How'd you get business?
So how I got business was, I left the bank with like a leap of faith. I wanted to go ahead and, just get it done because I didn't want to have that comfort of salary, because I wanted to put that fire under my butt. So to get my first client, what I did was I invested a little bit in the coaching program.
Okay.
I invested into the Tom Ferry program.
Excellent.
I wanted to just learn the ropes of, what is it in the real estate industry? How do I attract clients? What are tools that I can leverage? Because, banking is very regulated. So I couldn't go on Facebook or Instagram and post a lot of things.
Right.
Because, I would have gotten fired. But so I signed up for the Tom Ferry program. My coach, he was awesome. His name was Todd. He is one of the biggest impacts, at least in my real estate career.
Right.
Like, he taught me a lot. He taught me the sphere of influence plan, how to leverage things. He challenged me to do video.
Okay.
See, video wasn't something that I wanted to do. So he told me, post a video on your Facebook announcing that you're a real estate agent now. And I was like terrified. So he would have us do this thing called homework. So my homework was to do that video If not, I would have to post a video of shame. So there was like a reward or punishment kind of thing.
What was the shame?
Oh, I would have to post in the group that he had of like maybe dozens of people that, I would pretty much have to say the reason why I'm posting this video is because I failed to do my homework.
Oh, wow.
And so he would have us come up with a particular type of punishment.
Okay. That's interesting.
Yeah. It was funny, but it's a good way of accountability.
That video marketing, did that lead to you getting leads and clients? And
It did.
Okay.
So I posted it. I got like several hundred likes on it, which I didn't expect. I actually didn't. I probably didn't even expect one like on it, to be honest, because I didn't think people would watch it.
Right.
But I had the faith and I had the confidence to go ahead and do it. So I did it, and then I had a ton of people saying congratulations. When we're gonna buy a house, we're gonna reach out to you, and people did.
Wow.
So I was I started receiving DMs, not like right away, but as I started making myself familiar, like for example, constantly posting on Instagram in the beginning. It wasn't probably the best videos, but it was something. I made myself look busy.
Okay.
So that's the key, right? Because one of the biggest things that we learn in sales is social proof. Social proof is very big. People want what other people want.
Yeah.
And if they see that you're busy, they think that you're, you have some kind of value that you're adding. So the way I looked busy was I would just schedule tours on properties and just tour myself. I didn't even have a client, but I would tour the properties around, and then believe it or not, people actually reached out.
It's interesting, and I think you posted something today.
Right.
I was looking at, your post of, the replacements and everything. It's funny how, because I think you said in your story, it was like whether you call it karma or reap what you sow.
Right.
You were busy looking busy.
Right.
And it made you busy.
Absolutely. I put out the vibrations out there, and it attracted what I needed.
I'm all about that, man.
Yeah.
That's awesome. So had you ever done video before that? Were you a big social media person?
No.
Prior to? Okay.
I was actually, I wasn't like a really big video person or very big on social media. The only thing I had was Facebook.
Okay.
Instagram, I had deleted it for a while. To answer your question, I wasn't a big guy.
Okay. Because, I know you said you weren't, with the banking, you weren't necessarily promoting your, what you're doing at the bank, but
Right.
I didn't know if there was some other, you showing yourself at the club or whatever it is.
I would do stuff like that on Snapchat.
Gotcha. The thing that really kind of resonates with me is when I asked you what you first did, you said you went to coaching, and I think you're big on personal development and, constantly learning and everything. Where does that come from for you? Because a lot of people I've seen a lot of real estate agents when they first get in the business just sort of aimlessly go through it and, think that transactions, buyers and sellers are going to fall in their lap. You take a very deliberate approach to it. Where does that come from?
It just comes from, growing up, I've always been like, especially with so my parents are foreigners. They immigrated to this country. They're hardworking people. Mm-hmm. However, they were at work all the time. So growing up, I've always had to figure it out like on my own. So that's where it kind of stems from. And I'm grateful for that because it sparked that interest. Like I learned everything by myself. Like I was self-taught. I was always looking for resources on how to grow and learn. One of the biggest things was I'm not an expert in everything, and I can always iron sharpens iron, right? Right. So I wanted to find that iron so I can get sharpened. Gotcha. And that's why coaching really appealed to me because, I don't know anything about. I know about lead generation, but not in real estate.
Mm-hmm. Any time that I've gone through like a transition, it's been the same thing. When I first started in sales, I was like going to Dale Carnegie, How to Win Friends and Influence People. I started out working at like a suit store. And then when I got into mortgage, I was like, let me go dust off that Dale Carnegie book. And when I started this company, it was the same sort of thing. You said you're in Culpeper, Virginia?
I am, yes.
Okay. Talk to me about the activity that you're seeing out there, and are you working with a lot of buyers, more sellers? What are you getting into as far as transactions and staying busy now?
Right. And so Culpeper is where I'm. That's my home. Mm-hmm. My niche is actually Northern Virginia, Fredericksburg. I do cover Culpeper. Okay. Culpeper is a bit of a not as high as turnover as like let's say Fredericksburg, for example, or even Chantilly. Yeah. But with Culpeper, how I've gotten business there is I was doing EDDM, every door direct mail.
Okay.
That's how I actually got my first listing.
Really?
My first listing back in 2021, what I did was I was looking at all these like tools online, like Corefact, postcards that people you can make that are already pre-generated to send out. I tried that out, but it was very expensive, and I found that it was like not effective at all.
Right.
So I took a class.
What was it?
What was that?
It was sending
direct mail to houses, like geofarming.
Okay. So that service was just, you weren't getting any results from it, and it was too expensive.
Yeah, I wasn't getting any results, and it was too expensive,
Okay.
and they were just tacky designs that didn't like resonate with me. It was like
Postcards?
Yeah, postcards.
Okay.
They're very cookie cutter.
We do a lot of mail.
Yeah, nice. Mail is good. I think mail is an underrated marketing tactic because, like, believe it or not, it's a consistency game. It's like planting seeds, right? You just got to nurture it and water the seeds. So I was starting to get a little impatient. I'm like, these cards are kind of like tacky. So let me go ahead and try a different approach. I took a class on this. This top agent from North Carolina was talking about how he gets business. And he was talking about something that nobody talks about, and it's every door direct mail. I didn't even know that existed. He was talking about how he generated a lot of results. He would send that to apartment complexes because he was targeting first-time home buyers. And what every door direct mail is, it's a service that's offered through the post office where you can send postcards at a discounted price.
So how did you figure out the data? Did they just work with you and pretty much tee it up, or did you have some ideas on a market that you wanted to target and thought that you would see success in?
Yes. So I actually wanted to try my neighborhood.
Okay.
It's the easiest spot. I know, my neighbors. So I was like, let me go ahead and do my neighborhood. That was my first spot. So my mentor, my coach through Tom Ferry program, he taught me like what I need to do as far as like look at the turnover, make sure it's high enough to I don't remember the exact percentage, but he gave me a percentage to follow, and my neighborhood met that percentage. So the turnover, lucky me. So I decided to give it a shot, and he told me, it might take 18 months to see a result, but just be consistent. That's the key.
Keep mailing
every month.
Mailing. Okay.
At the same time of the month, keep mailing.
So how long did it take for you to get? Did it take you 18 months? It doesn't sound
Dude, it took me 3 months.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, it took me 3 months.
So to just make this clear, you had left your full-time job.
Right.
You were all in. Not only had you left your full-time job, but you had invested your own money into a coaching program as well. I don't know if Tom Ferry, I don't think he's very cheap. He's a top coach.
Right.
And so you're 3 months, you've invested in the coaching program and invested in this marketing, without a paycheck. What's your confidence level, at that point? What's going through your head when you're 3 months in and you're like, hey, I need to, put some money in the bank?
It's sink or swim.
Yeah.
So I'm not going to sink. I'm going to swim.
Let's go.
So that's
I love that.
That's how I saw it because my family is depending on me and they need my income.
Yeah.
So that I couldn't afford to fail. And I know that was a long-term play, but it was one of the many strategies I was incorporating.
Right.
So it wasn't the one that I was solely relying on, but it was the one that landed me my first listing.
Awesome. I'm a mortgage broker, so we love to talk about your buyers. What are your strategies on how you're first getting buyers, and then sort of your approach to helping them win in this market?
All right. So how I first started getting buyers was just posting videos that are the added value on how to buy a home, because people think that buying a home is this very intimidating process, especially because of what their parents instill in them. It's a very fear-based approach that a lot of people grow up to, think.
Right.
So I would just try to. My goal going into it was to make it easy for people, because I like things that are easy. I don't like to overcomplicate things if they don't have to be. So that was my goal. I just took some time to really think about what value I want to add out there, and I wanted to make things simple for my clients. So just posting videos that are encouraging, talking about things that pain points that first time home buyers would have, because at the end of the day, if you want to add value, you have to address pain points.
Right.
And what are the first time home buyer pain points? Down payments, right? transitions, believe it or not. Like how long do I need to buy a house, especially in that market, or even in this market? It's still really chaotic with the bidding wars. I've closed on recent deals where like my clients are still having to waive home inspections, and they're still having to do all kinds of crazy things.
It's crazy considering the affordability that we're still seeing that. But the content strategy. So that was all Sphere. I'm guessing. Okay. So you had people who, high school friends and whoever it was that were reaching out to you.
My high school friend was actually my first client.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, he just reached out to me. He said, "Hey, I want to buy a house and I want you to help me." And I was like, "Okay, sure." I was like, you know what? Like, what's funny is I always attribute it to this. So I'm a big believer in the law of attraction. And every day when I watched this video that Tom Ferry would post. He told us to post or to write down in a journal 10 things that you're grateful for, and then manifest a goal. So like speak out what you want to happen. Yeah. So it can be like, I will earn 100,000 GCI this year, 200, a million, depending on what your goals are. So I would do that every day. And I just feel like everything just kind of started falling along, like in place. Yeah. And, he reached out to me saying, "Hey, I want to buy my first house." And then, I was super excited. I didn't even feel like I was ready for it, but, I made sure to put on that mask of confidence. And that's how I got my first client, just by content, and engaging with people.
That's awesome. I had a similar kind of story with the content journey. We started in 2020, and things with the rates being so low, you could, as a mortgage broker, you could walk outside and a refinance would just fall and hit you on the head, essentially, is how I describe it. So when the rates just skyrocketed at the end of 2021, beginning of 2022, we were saying, "Hey, what are we going to do here?" And I reached out, similar to you with the coaching program, to look into content marketing. And I saw people that were posting videos on Instagram and Facebook and said, maybe there's something to this. Are these people just trying to get likes? Right. Or are they actually doing business from it? And learned a few strategies, a lot very similar to what you're talking about, that are proven to work. And did my first week, I remember I was posting a video every day. After that first week, I check and I had like, 400 followers when I started. And after the first week, I look 300 followers. Nice. 100 people left. I dropped down 100 followers. Right. Went from 4 to 300.
That hurts.
Oh my gosh. Nobody wants to hear me talk about this. And, I don't know if I should continue on with doing this content. That night I'm sitting down, I'm at the bar drowning my sorrows, and I get a DM from a guy that I hadn't talked to or maybe thought of in like 15 years. Friend from high school. He said, "Hey man, I've been watching your videos and I'm looking to buy a house. Can you help me out?" Right. And it was just, it was really great to see all that effort and the belief that went behind it. Because I was very skeptical at first. But those strategies do work because you are, like you said, adding value and you're educating people, and they're going to be on their Instagram or Facebook anyways, looking at kind of mindless stuff. It's really great for them to learn about real estate, something that's going to, benefit them so much in the long run. So it's cool to see that you're doing that. I watch your, met through Instagram and everything, and I think it's great. You've been very consistent and everything. Where does the technology side come from when you talk about doing innovation and making things simplified for your clients, whether it's buyers or sellers? Where does the tech background come from?
Back when I was in banking, I had developed an obsession with fintech. Okay. So I really love what the banks were doing with like mobile deposit. Yeah. They were doing things like, Zelle is more of a recent thing that started back in like 2016, 2017. That was so cool because the fact that I can send money to you within like a minute or two was like mind blowing, right? Yeah. I don't even have to step into a branch. Mm-hmm. So my passion started from when I was a kid, just playing video games, and then.
Okay. So you're not computer programming background or anything like that. It's just a curiosity that gets you into it. So are you using that to automate, just processes to allow you to be able to help more clients, or, kind of how do you work that into your day to day?
Yeah, so I actually came across this really cool tool that you guys can even look into, being in the mortgage industry, HomeBot.
Okay.
HomeBot is a really cool thing, and if it's actually meant to partner up with agents and brokers.
Okay.
So they partner up together, and then you send automated emails every month, but the open rates on those emails are actually like absurd. Like it's really high. Because, when you try to send them through most of our CRMs, they'll have like this message that says like, mark safe or it's spam, but HomeBot bypasses that.
Okay.
And then
it helps to be curious because you say, hey, there's all of these tools out there. I call them the shiny objects.
Right.
And when you go through the demo with any like software salesperson, they're like, yeah, it's so great. It'll do this and that. But once you get that subscription going and get signed up, it's a lot of times a little bit more challenging than people would think to get things, off the ground and actually functioning the way that they were demonstrated to you.
Right.
So it helps to be really curious and be somebody who's persistent enough to say, hey, I'm going to get the maximum value out of this tool to, help me grow my business and, assist more clients. I have a issue myself with tinkering around too much with some of these tools, and there's always something new coming up. And I think a lot of people in this business know there's always some new shiny object that somebody's going to be trying to, sell you and tell you it's the next thing you need. Then, it's only $50 a month. Then next thing you know, $50 a month, you're spending $3,000 a month on tools, and half of them you don't even know how to use.
Right.
So we kind of touched on this a little bit. I really want to talk about, what you think about the market right now. You're doing a great job generating business, and, through content, I love that you're doing all the different strategies, not necessarily just one thing. So what are you seeing right now? Rates are at 20-year highs. Home prices have not come down as a result of that due to the lack of inventory. So what's your outlook on the real estate market, today and going forward into the near future?
I would say that, like, my advice to any, home buyer would be that at the end of the day, it's impossible to time the market because everybody wants to time it to where it's convenient for them. When COVID-19 first started, people were saying, don't buy a house. The market's going to crash. The country's going to fail.
Crazy.
Dude, you wouldn't believe the amount of criticism my wife and I were getting for buying a house right at the very beginning of the pandemic. As we were touring, the country shut down. Yeah. People were saying, don't buy a house, don't buy a house, don't buy a house. And the next thing you know, in a year later, my net worth increased $100,000. Yeah. So it's impossible to time a market. My advice to the first time home buyer is just buy when you're ready, because you don't know what 6 months down the line is going to look like. Right. And if the market crashes, guess what? People get laid off. Are you even going to be able to buy a house? Because, people get let go. Or if rates do go down, competition is going to get way more fierce. Right. I'm optimistic. I think somebody can make moves in any market, regardless if it's a recession or not. Right. The amount of times that real estate, everybody talks about it crashing during a recession, that's just because they're looking back to the most recent, large recession that we went through that was directly tied to housing. But when you look at every other one, people have seen the charts, real estate prices have risen. Right. There's something interesting that I saw, because on the face value of it, you would look and say the obvious thing is there's a lack of inventory. And when rates go down, all the buyers are going to start flooded back. They're being held back right now because of the high rates and low affordability. I did see something that, somebody said that when rates get to, back down to 6, that it's not necessarily going to make homes more affordable and bring a lot of buyers back, but it will unlock some of those sellers who are held into their properties right now with those 3% rates. They're still going to have a lot of equity. And once they hit that 6% threshold, they're going to actually go ahead and say, okay, now I can sell. Now I can move on. I'm going to be putting 50, 60% down on my next property. And so that may be a trigger to actually bring more inventory into the market. Right. So all really positive factors, because although I agree with you 100%, you can't time the market. I'm optimistic in the same way
that when we start to see those rates come down, it is going to release some inventory. It's going to make things just even more affordable for people. So I think that's something that hopefully buyers are, if they are waiting, because a lot of them just can't afford right now.
Right.
A good amount of it is definitely just fear in the media, but there are some people who, it's sad, they're just absolutely priced out.
Right.
And I also like to, I'm always thinking about solutions
Right.
for, what can we do to help get people into homes? What are your thoughts on that? Do you have any, you seem like me, like you've got some good ideas. What do you see as a solution to some of these affordability issues right now? Because obviously, buy when you're ready. I completely agree with that. Don't buy something you can't afford. What are some options and strategies that buyers can use right now to get in and get a good deal?
I would say it all comes down to just making sure that you're educated and that you know about the process and how much you need. So talk with a mortgage broker, ask them, how much is it going to cost for me to get a house in this market, and then work for it. Yeah. When you have an actual set number, like let's say you need X amount for a down payment, you need X amount for closing costs, and you have a set figure in your mind, and this is how much you're going to need to be able to get, a $500,000 house. You start to become encouraged psychologically, so you start taking action. So that buyer might find a side hustle. They might end up being encouraged to find a better job.
Yeah.
So that's how I would kind of look at it from a psychological standpoint. But as far as creativity goes, I would say, working with a real estate professional who is savvy, right? Because a lot of the times people don't even realize that they can negotiate closing costs, especially in this market, since it's been so taboo. People are almost afraid to even ask for closing cost help. But believe it or not, some sellers are not money driven. Some of them are emotionally driven. I've had clients that have written love letters. And I didn't think they were going to get it from a logical standpoint. I'm like, there's no way in hell they're going to get their offer accepted, but they just fell in love with their story. I can't say that would be a fix for every house, because there's some investors that are just stone cold.
Right.
But I would say like writing love letters is a creative way to be able to get a closing cost help, because believe it or not, it is expensive.
Yeah. Dude, I love that you first talk about the psychological aspect of it. Making the decision that you want to become a homeowner is important, because if you're listening to the mainstream news media and reading headlines and seeing, the market's going to crash, recession, you could be totally scared away and into sitting on the bench for a long period of time. So first making that decision and then putting the belief behind it. Right. Then take that action. Figure out what your budget is. So I really like that you talk about that first, because I completely agree with you that is more important than saying, hey, go out and negotiate a good deal. Well, first you have to decide if this is something that you want to do. Do you want to get in the game? Do you want to be a part of this? Do you want to have look back in 10 years and, say that I haven't thrown all my money out on rent and I put it into, building home equity? You have to make that decision.
Right. And then I agree, like just to kind of piggyback off of what you were talking about, there are some expenses that we all do that are insane. So doing an audit, when you start to write things down, you're going to do an audit on what your expenses are. You might have like some bullshit subscription that you didn't even realize you had. Yeah. And I had some of those myself. Like I signed up for some video editing software that I completely forgot about.
And they hit you with the pay annually. And then a year later, you're like, what the hell is this?
Dude, I looked at my bank account and I saw where the hell did this $100 go? Yeah. And I had a subscription to my, my Heritage. I went through a period of time where I wanted to really look into my ancestry.
Okay. Any real estate agents in your lineage?
No, I wish. My grandpa actually owned a lot of real estate out in Nicaragua. That's where my parents are from. Okay. He was actually a very, very wealthy man. My dad claims, I'm not sure if this is true, but my dad claims that this man won the lottery 4 times in his country. So I'm trying to really manifest that luck into my life.
So it's in your blood.
It's in my blood.
The building wealth, helping other people build wealth. It's a part of your genetic makeup. So
absolutely,
that's awesome. It's an interesting market because the inventory is low. The sellers are pulling back quite a bit. Do you see there becoming an actual shift right now? Especially we're in the winter market. Do you think this is a time where buyers can go out and without that love letter, with a strong offer, and just say, hey, this is what I want, give it to me? Do they have the options and flexibility right now?
I do, especially with the winter, coming up. I do believe they do have that option.
Okay.
It is tough because you don't have the inventory you necessarily would like. However, approaching it with an open mind, I think you're able to make magic happen. So yes, I do kind of see a shift starting to come. The shift doesn't seem like it was as bad as it was back, like I believe last year. Mm-hmm. Last year, dude, I lost like a ton of business when the interest rates first spiked up because you had headlines saying mortgage rates are increasing by 300-400%. Yeah, which is actually, once you think about it, like it's actually not. It wasn't increasing that much. Right. It was just it's a good hook, right, to scare people. I lost listings, I lost buyers because of the fear. But then spring market came, and I didn't even realize it would be insane in 2023. Yeah. I thought it was going to be a completely slow year. So, yeah, I mean, I think anytime the market does slow down, I think it's the best time for buyers to go out there because the chances are of you securing what you want is a lot higher than it would be, let's say, on quote unquote, like, spring, for example.
Yeah. I'm looking at, as far as like solutions to the inventory problem, I think one of the things that'll just be out of our control is if whoever this is that's right, it's not my theory, but that says when rates come down to 6, that a lot of inventory is going to get released. I'm optimistic about that. Do you see a lot of, in your market, just raw land?
I do see raw land. I actually have a few raw land deals myself. Okay.
What do you do on those? Are you selling them? Are you working with buyers?
So working with listings. Okay. I think people do want to buy land just to kind of hold on it. And then, when it comes to land, I think it becomes a bit tricky for the buyer because like you have to go with like smaller banks because a lot of like mainstream mortgage companies don't want to, or don't necessarily, that's not their target market, right?
That's what I tell people. If you just want to acquire the land, you're better off going with a local credit union. Right. We have this one-time close program where you close on it one time and then they'll build the house. So you can acquire the land and build a custom home all in one transaction. And a lot of the people I talk to that are doing raw land, they're trying to acquire it, but they know that they're eventually going to put a house on that land. And they just don't realize the, I guess, logistics of it. So they're trying to buy the land first and then bring a builder in, and then they're going to figure out how to finance that some other way. I'm doing my part to get that out to the masses because I really believe that that's a great solution to the inventory problem. Well, these large builders may not be going out and putting up as many big developments. They're way behind on their construction units. So as an individual, I always just look to say, don't let there be an excuse of, hey, the market forces are keeping me out. What can you do? Well, you can go and you can buy a raw piece of land and build a house on it. Right. So now there's no inventory issue for you. There's a lot of the land I see, tell me if this is what you see too, it sits there for a while.
It does. It does because I think just with land in general, and I'm learning a lot about land just recently through some commercial deals that I've gotten. Okay. With land, I just think a lot of it is just poorly marketed. Yeah. Even myself, I'm guilty of it. I have a land deal right now that I terribly marketed. Yeah. Which I'm getting ready to get some drone photography in within the next week or so. I think the most important thing when it comes to looking for land is you have to know what zoning requirements are. Yes. Zoning requirements, especially for residential, you have to make sure it's either zoned residentially or zoned agriculture, right? Right. To be able to make the most of what you want. So zoning is definitely important. And then
do you look into any of that?
I do. Okay. I'm a huge nerd when it comes to that.
Awesome. I'm all about creating solutions for the problem that we have right now. I believe that there's a crisis in the housing market, which is not the crisis that a lot of people would think. But the fact that there is such a lack of inventory and entry-level, homes for people to get into, and the affordability is so low. I've tied my whole life to it, Right. You have too. Eat, sleep, breathe, real estate. I'm looking at all of the possible solutions, and now we're getting into even some, getting into, I'm not a political guy, but, looking at legislation and everything like that to try and help with the problem, because I really believe that as far as from the real estate And from the mortgage end, you hear it. There's this, FHA, VA, USDA, Fannie and Freddie, they're all doing their part to do everything they can to boost things for first-time home buyers and make things more affordable. There are more down payment assistance programs out there than I can count.
Right.
But what do you do if there's not a house for you? If everybody's fighting over the same house? So I'm really passionate about this. And right now, as you're coming on, it's like this is something that I'm really putting a lot of thought into is what can we do to help with the inventory. So the new construction is one.
Right.
Doing the one-time close is one that I really, it's not a huge dent in the problem, but it's something for an individual to be able to go out there and say, hey, I'm not going to play in this market of competing with all these other buyers for these existing homes. I'm going to go out and find a piece of land and build myself a property.
Right.
I think that's something that can help people out.
I think it's going to require a little bit of creativity because, we are focused on the home buyer, right? But then the sellers are also home buyers, like you were saying.
Yeah.
And what we agents and we in the industry need to do is we need to educate the sellers on how the transition process does work because, real estate needs are triggered often by life events, right? Mm-hmm. And just because the market is, not necessarily in favor of home buyers, there's always going to be life events, whether it's you needing to downsize, and a family emergency might happen over, across the country where you need to move. So life events still happen regardless of the market.
Yeah.
So I think just explaining, for agents, my advice would be to get well versed on transition periods, to have those conversations so we can put sellers' minds at ease. Because if we address the questions of, how am I going to transition? Am I going to even be able to find a house? Am I going to be able to afford one? I think if we're well versed with those answers, we'll be putting the seller's minds at ease and we'll be able to, increase inventory.
Yeah.
Because we'll be having those conversations. If you have a conversation with the seller, right? A lot of the times people sell their homes because they're too damn big. Mm-hmm. They're getting older. They don't want to go up the stairs.
Yeah.
That was the exact person that I bought my house from. They're looking to downsize. So when it comes to downsizing, those home kits are actually a really good idea. You're able to buy a raw piece of land, and then you're able to have a contractor build it. They offer packages with contractors that are way more affordable than if you were to buy a house on the market. I think that's going to be something that's going to become popular. We've already seen a form of it popularized on TikTok and Instagram, and those are the tiny homes. Tiny homes are a form of those home kits.
There's a lot of hype right now about ADU financing is being promoted by the agencies. So they're saying, hey, you can go in and get financing just through a traditional loan to put in-law suite or granny carriage house or whatever they call them, but it's an ADU.
Right.
So put another dwelling on your property. Now everybody's jumping on that. So it's kind of what I was saying. Everybody on the lending side and on the actual real estate side is doing everything they can to prop up things for buyers. Just we need to, like what you were saying, consider the sellers too. So I love that you're thinking of it that way and educating sellers, saying, hey, you don't need to have as much fear about putting your house on the market. Let's educate you on the way the actual transition process works.
And I think you bring up a good point, which is I think a very interesting topic that is a creative way to be able to afford housing, and that's multi-generational housing.
Yeah. That's where we're headed.
Right.
I mean, really, it's if there's not some big change, we're headed in that direction.
Right. And it's already been happening with just us millennials, mm-hmm. right? We're staying at home a lot longer than any previous generation has been. And the reason why, it's because we're looking to save some money.
Yeah.
And,
be nice to your grandma.
Right.
She's living in your house.
Absolutely. Yeah.
That's what I gotta say.
Absolutely.
That's where a lot of the inventory is. They talk about half of the homes in
mm-hmm.
the country are completely paid off.
Right.
They don't have mortgages on them. There's a lot of, and that's parents, grandparents that have that inventory. So hopefully that's going to be able to stay. That real estate is going to be able to stay in the family.
Right.
Yeah.
I think that's a great way to be able to just, affordability and also transition as well. If you're mm-hmm. looking to buy a house with, your grandma, your mom or dad or cousin.
Yeah.
A lot of cultures are actually even here, you see that in Chantilly, a lot of cultures are very close together.
Yeah.
And I think with that being said, people want to be close to their family. So multi-generational housing is a good creative way to be able to afford housing.
Yeah. So we'll start to see trends where sellers can probably give a big boost to their property by, hey, renovate that basement, put a little apartment kitchen down there, because that's what is going to be attracting people. If the properties are a little more expensive, well, brother and sister might have to go in and buy it, together, or, mother, son, whatever it is.
Right.
Families are going to be living in these properties. So make that little separation of space. So it's something that you can have, multi-generation or,
right.
Whoever it is. So that could be a cool trend as well.
It's a pretty cool thing that I tell my buyers to do. If they want to see if they're paying a lot monthly or whether it's worth it or not, is leveraging the free tools online like Zillow. Zillow has this rent calculator that you can run your property through, and it'll tell you it'll give you a comparative market analysis on how much your house will rent for in this market today.
Wow. And
just compare that to your mortgage payment. And even if in my opinion, if you're able to even break even, I mean, that's a win, because if you want to move, you're offsetting that cost and they're paying off your mortgage at the same time.
Break even, or if you can knock out a couple of those subscriptions that you didn't know that you had. Hey,
right.
Even if you're taking a couple $100, L on the property each month, a lot of people are throwing their money away on crap anyway. So,
right.
But you have that mortgage getting paid for you, and you're building that long-term equity, tax benefits. We could go on and on. But
right.
I think it's cool that we're thinking that you also are someone that thinks about some of these creative ways,
right.
Because I talk to a lot of people, and it's just, hey, we see buyers, we're telling them not to time the market, but a lot of people in the industry are timing the market. They're waiting for things to get better,
right?
And telling their buyers not to wait, telling their clients, not to wait and not to time the market, but they themselves are not getting out there and taking action, coming up with these ideas and ways to actually have a positive impact on the market conditions.
Right.
You're saying, well, throw your hands up. There's nothing we can do about it. So I like that your head,
right.
We're very similar in our mindset there.
Yeah. Tom Ferry makes a good point. He's been saying this for years. He was saying that we don't have an inventory problem. We have an agent problem.
Yeah.
There aren't enough agents out there having conversations, which is why we have the inventory problem.
I love that.
It's a radical claim, but I think it's true. I think it holds weight, because a lot of the times we're as sales professionals, many of us are afraid of rejection. But I think once we get past that, fear of rejection, I mean, we're able to make things happen. So just agents need to take action, and they need to have more conversations.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, Kevin, it's been a really awesome conversation. I really appreciate you reaching out and coming on. We'll have to do this again sometime.
Oh, absolutely. I don't even think we touched base on a lot of the things we were going to talk about. We just literally just free fraud it.
I love it, man. Free flow. I had a good time. So
yeah, me too, man.
We'll do it again. Thanks for coming out.
Absolutely.
All right. Cut.